One of the most popular uses for Luminar 4 is replacing the sky, and they've made it very simple and easy. They have an AI sky replacement tool, and there is a number of stock photos that are in there that you can use. The thing is, you need to know a little bit more about what sky you need to choose and what emotion and impact it's going to have on your photograph, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Hi, my name is William Beem. I'm a portrait photographer in Central Florida, but I also do a lot of travel photography, and sky replacement is one of those interesting things that people like to do, and quite honestly, I've done it myself. Some of my most popular photographs, actually, I've replaced the sky. Now, right off the bat, some people think that you shouldn't replace the sky, that you should just take the photograph and whatever you get is what you get. I don't agree with that. In my mind, photography is not simply documenting what you found. Photography is an art form. You can create something, and that means using a little bit of compositing. We're always manipulating and tweaking things to make them look better and enhance them. To me, replacing the sky is one of the reasons that we can make some of our travel photos look a little bit better. And my thought is, a photograph is not reality. A photograph is a representation of something. And the reality of whatever location you're looking at is changing moment by moment. So some days it's daytime, sometimes it's nighttime, at sunset or sunrise. You've got storms coming through. You have beautiful sunsets. So the question is, why shouldn't you be allowed to represent a place the way that you want to artistically? Let's start off. This is a photograph I took, obviously, of the United States Capitol. And at the time I was there, it was the worst thing a travel photographer could find: bald skies. I mean, there's just not a cloud in the sky. But there is something that we need to pay attention to as we decide what sky we're going to use to replace this. If you look over here by these trees that have kind of lost their leaves, you can see that there's some warmth over here. So in other words, this is the time when the sun is going down and there's a little bit of warmth there, and you can see it also in the reflection. So there's two things that we need to know about replacing the sky. One, the location of our light source is setting over here. Two, the reflection on this glass needs to also reflect whatever is happening in the sky. In other words, if you get some funky looking kind of sky over here and the reflection does not appear down here, then you're in a bit of trouble. I did this photograph in Photoshop some years ago, and it took me quite a bit of work to go ahead, not only to get the sky in there in just the right place, and look at the detail we have to go through. We've got to worry about these little trees over here. Up here on the top of the building, you've got all these little columns in the railing, and also the same thing down here in the reflection. If you don't get the reflection and the sky placed just right, people are going to know. Not that they're going to say, oh, look, that's fake. Something in their mind is simply going to say, that just doesn't look right. And they may not ever analyze it enough to find out why it doesn't look right, but that's your job as a photographer. If you're going to do some compositing, you need to do it in a way that is logical to the brain. So let's go ahead and start off over here with the AI sky replacement. And you can see, first thing we need to do is select which sky we're going to put in there. So these are the stock skies that show up. So we could put in a blue sky and it'll just process for a moment. I don't think that sells it, because obviously the lighting here is a little bit different. There's still the warmth over here that didn't come in, and we can adjust that. But notice what it's done for you automatically. You see the reflections of the clouds from up here coming down here. In other words, you don't have to go through all the work that I did in Photoshop to sell it with the reflections. The tool is smart enough that when you use the AI sky replacement tool in Luminar 4, it is going to put those reflections in there for you. So what we really want for this particular photograph is going to be a sunset. And there are a few of them over here. I'll pull up a couple of them and we'll take a look through them. I'm not really in love with the options that we have here. And it's good to get you started. It's very good for practicing. But keep in mind, everybody else who has Luminar has access to these same clouds. And you can tweak them a little bit. So for example, we can change like the horizon position, and what you'll get is a little bit different than what someone else gets and shows. And I still think that's good, but let's go ahead and take a look at changing to some of our own clouds. So you can come down here to load custom sky image. And I've got a collection of sunset photos here. I'm going to use this one, Sunset 16, and we're going to open that up. And just like the ones that are built in, it'll take a moment, and then it will go ahead and do its calculations, and then you've got a sunset sky. This is not the only look you can have for a particular sunset. Notice that you've got some options over here for horizon blending. That isn't too much of a problem for us because the horizon is kind of off in the distance and behind the building. Horizon position. So let's say that if you were doing this over flat land or mountains, you can kind of change where is the position of the horizon. And as you do that, you can see how the sky changes. So we're getting different looks from the same photograph. And that kind of helps us out. As I've got this with this particular sky, notice over here where this tree was going. If I pull this back a little bit, the angle of the sun was coming from this direction, and that helps us out right over here. So just moving the horizon position around helps you out in mimicking where the sun is in your particular photograph and that you're going to be using for a sky replacement, and where the light is coming on your photograph and subject. So for this particular image, when I know that the sun was already over here, that just saves a whole lot of problems. Otherwise, I've got to start working with other tools to try and fix some problems that we'll have. You can see a little bit of the warmth over here from this side, and we can change that as we go too. So for example, we can go ahead and relight the scene, and I'm just going to move this around kind of for effect. And you can see how it changed the warmth, particularly as you look right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over. These are tools that I think use to your own taste. If you find something that looks good, that's great. If it doesn't, in other words, I can't give you a number. Like for example, right now I'm at 47 and say for all your photographs, you use 47. It just doesn't work that way. You're going to have to decide and kind of move these sliders around to say, what's the lighting that's right for my scene? Again, you're doing a representation of something. You're not exactly trying to mimic everything that was there. Sky Global is going to affect how the texture of your new sky blends in with your existing sky. So we had it pretty lucky with this one. It was just a bald sky. And I think in my case, that's mostly how I'm going to be doing it. If you had a sky that already had clouds or something else in there, this is how your new sky blends in with your old one. So you can kind of move this up, and your new sky replacement will take over more and more and put the old sky towards the background. So you may need to pull this up if you're replacing a sky that already has a lot of texture in it. In this particular photo, it's not going to make much of a difference because it's not competing with any texture in the sky. Closed gaps is good for, let's say, something like this little tree over here. I'm going to go ahead and replace this sky with something else. And just for the fun of it, let's say blue sky too. You see how we have this kind of warmth over here? It's not really getting in between the details. It's doing a wonderful job up here. If I come up to do closed gaps, I can pull this down a little bit. And you see how it's kind of moved some of that warmth out of here. If we pull it up too much, you can see how it kind of overcompensates for what was already there. So when I pull this down to close gaps, it's doing more to try and blend in the sky along with this particular feature with the trees that still had warmth in it from the original sky. So it's something that's not necessarily going to be perfect every time you do it. But I found that if you do have something like this and you just need to kind of sell the image a little bit more, pull down the closed gaps and it kind of treats that a little bit. So let's go back to our other sky. Sky Local is kind of similar to Sky Global. It's going to affect how much you're integrating your old sky with the new sky that you've used as a replacement. So as you bring this up, it's going to put more emphasis on the sky that you're using as a replacement. There may be times where you want to blend the skies together, the one that's in the photograph and the one that you have used for a replacement. In my case, I usually would just want to replace the entire thing. And again, since this was kind of a blue sky with no clouds in it, this doesn't do much for this photograph. But if you're running into problems where you see the old sky and clouds and features in there that are kind of moving through, you can move Sky Local up and it will get rid of those old clouds and put more emphasis on the new sky that you've put in place. Down here with the sky defocus, there may be times where you want to emulate kind of a shallow depth of field. So you don't want the sky in perfect focus. If that's the case, you can just go ahead and move this slider up. And you can see as I do that, it's really making those skies and the clouds and everything look a bit blurry. That might happen if you've got a subject that's up close and the sky in your original image was already defocused because of your lens. This is something that when you replace the defocused sky with a fresh new sky, it might look out of place if everything leading up to the sky is out of focus, then suddenly everything's sharp and clear in the sky. Flip sky will just simply flip the sky as you thought. So for example, maybe you've got a photograph of a sky, the sun is on one side or the other. Well, if you flip it, you can change where that sun is. In this case, I want it over here where the sun was coming from the original photo. But if you had a photograph where the light was coming on the other side, no problem, just flip it around. Atmospheric haze, well, let's just show you. It's going to bring up kind of like a little fog or a little bit of atmospheric haze. I got to tell you, I'm not thrilled with this one. It's doing it in the sky, but it's giving you nothing here in the foreground. And that's something to keep in mind. All of these sliders, they're only affecting the area where the sky was. I don't know a reason why I would have atmospheric haze on the sky that wasn't on my subject. In other words, the fog was way off in the background and up in the sky, but not a bit of it was here in the foreground. So to me, this is not something that I find believable. It's there. There might be a reason for using it in some other photos, but I haven't come across it yet. I'm looking forward to Luminar AI. They have a fog atmosphere or atmosphere AI that's going to have lifelike and realistic fog that not only just handles the sky, but also inside of your photograph, and it's going to have an understanding of depth and objects within the photograph. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that. But for right now, this atmospheric haze, quite honestly, I'm just not feeling it. Now, there are times that you may want to go ahead and change the sky temperature. So if you pull it to this side, you see how it gets a little cooler. Pull it to this side, it gets a little bit warmer. And again, this is something that you need to do to taste for your photograph and the sky that you're blending. What I do like in some cases like this one, I want to pull the sky exposure down a little bit. Usually I want my photograph or my subject of my photograph to have a little bit more presence. And one way to do that is to pull down the sky exposure. So I can do that. And then I may go ahead and let's say that we'll add another layer. I'm going to add a new adjustment layer. And the reason I'm doing that is because that is the only way we can get a mask with the Essentials tool. So I'm going to go ahead and edit a mask. I'm going to make it a radial mask. And the other thing I want to do is invert this mask. So I've got more there, and I'm simply going to bring up the exposure a little bit. So all I'm really doing or looking to do here is kind of get a little bit of light on the dome in that area. And let's just take a quick look. So this is what we've done. We've taken a photograph like this with a blue sky and a bright dome, and we brought it over here. Well, I might play with this dome a little bit more, but we're not really worried about the radial mask at this point. That's a way to replace the sky in a nutshell. I think what you want to consider the various tools we have over here, and definitely go into the advanced settings, because like I said, over here, if you've got some trees or something that's very fine and it's not quite replacing it, you can go over here and close that gap. You can blend in using the sky global and the sky local to blend in with an existing sky. All right, so let's just go ahead and recap a little bit. If you're going to be replacing the sky, evaluate your photograph first. You're going to look for the direction of light, and you're also going to be looking for any reflections that you may have. The nice part about this tool is it pretty much handles the reflections for you. So keep in mind the direction of light. You can flip a new sky if the direction of light is coming from the wrong side. A little bit harder to do if it's coming from above. So you might be able to get it from one side of the clock to the other. So if you're looking at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, not a problem. You can still flip that around. But just take a look at the direction of light and choose your sky replacement photograph based upon the direction of light. You also want to get the right mood. So for example, if it's a sunset and then you put in a dark and gloomy sky, it's not going to have the right look because the lighting isn't going to match with everything else. One thing you could do is if you have a sky that you really like and it doesn't match the color, is then go to use some of the other color tools that are inside of Luminar and do an overall kind of color cast, maybe a split toning or maybe a photo filter. And that way it unifies the colors and helps you sell the image that you're creating. If this was helpful to you, please, I would love it if you would like this video. And if you like things like this, I'll share more. Please go ahead, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so that way you'll get notified the next time I put out another one. And quite honestly, if you know someone who might be interested in what I'm sharing here, please go ahead and share this video or any of the others along with them. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.